Good afternoon, and welcome to our leadership series. It's my pleasure to have Mr. Barnett Helzberg as our guest today. It truly is an honor. Over the last 5 years, I've been really fortunate to meet and work with Barnett on numerous occasions and projects on our campus. He's really been very generous with his time, has allowed us to pick his brain while establishing the School of Medicine Junior Faculty Mentoring Program, and mentoring is something that he really takes to heart. His experience with HEMP, which is the Helzberg Entrepreneurial Mentoring Program in Kansas City, helps young business leaders in our community grow their businesses, and he brings his wealth of knowledge from his experiences in business and throughout his life. And we've been able to tap into that in terms of developing our own mentoring program in the School of Medicine for our faculty. Your handout today kind of covers his business background, his accomplishments, which are many. But on a personal basis, I like to say that he's really a wonderful human being. So we don't say being anymore, just being, human being. And every time we meet with him or he comes to give a presentation, and he's done several for us, I really feel inspired to be a better person, to do more to help others, and get some new wrinkles in my brain from lessons I've learned during our discussions. And I think that occurs even if he wasn't really trying to teach me something. So I hope today you'll experience the same inspiration that we've experienced in the School of Medicine, in our Professional Development Faculty Affairs Office as we've worked on this mentoring program. And today he's going to share what he has learned. Here's Barnett Helzberg.
Thank you, Dr. Klein. I want to start a little bit in an unconventional way. First, give you a little bit of, and thank you. I asked Dr. Klein, I'm not an arrogant person, not to mention my Heisman Trophy or my Pulitzer. So I do appreciate that. I'm very modest, you know. And so anyway, a little housekeeping and then we'll start. This is my associate, Debbie Murphy, and I wanted to thank you for renaming the building in her honor and the elevator. That's very nice. Anyway, she's doesn't want the spotlight, so she'll probably kill me for that. Anyway, what we'd like to do is really have your questions, and I once told somebody at the Central Exchange, you know, my dream was always to just not do a speech, but just say, let's have questions. And I got some stuff I'd like to share, a few things. Pogo's one of my favorites. You maybe don't remember him. Walt Kelly was a cartoonist when he passed away. You remember him. Somebody remembers. Thank you. The cartoon went out of business, but James Carville, you probably know, he ran Clinton's campaign, and he was quoted in Time magazine saying, this is the most brilliant thing said in the history of man. Well, I might exaggerate a little, but anyway, it's good. Anyway, I want to be very upfront with you about everything, and I hope you'll give me some questions. I spoke for a group, and I was kind of frustrated, and I kind of grade myself on how many questions. And I asked, why weren't there more questions? And, you know, everybody wants to be nice. So he says, well, you covered everything. And he said, they didn't want to ask any bad questions. Well, there are no bad questions. You might get bad answers, but there's no bad questions. So, and I want to be very upfront with you. I know Marty McLaughlin thought, and Dr. Klein thought I've been successful in business. And I want to be upfront with you and give you the full story because actually my wife made me a millionaire. I used to be a billionaire, so I want to give you the whole truth. Anyway, so I want to start out with your questions and I don't like just being talked to. So what questions do you have in your mind? Good, we have one. Have a doctor in the balcony. Does anybody remember that program? You remember things. She's smiling at all my old-fashioned stuff. Okay.
Okay. What was the most important thing you learned from your father?
Oh, boy. Well, that's a great question and a very tough one. I've got a whole bunch of things in here that I learned, but probably from both my folks. That's really a good one because I've never thought of that way. Maybe treating people, how to treat people no matter who they were, you know, whether it was the milkman or anybody, that everybody's a person and you treat them with dignity. Probably that. My dad, some of these retailers, you know, made cracks about their customers. My dad thought that was horrible. And my mother, same values. Great question. Wow, what a start.
Who is your most important mentor, and what did you learn from him or her?
Well, my dad undoubtedly, and my mother. And, well, that, obviously the people thing. But a lot of little individual things. One was if they'll steal for you, they'll steal from you. If you expect people to be dishonest with your customer, expect them to be dishonest with you. I think integrity, and frankly, I don't think it's a goody-goody thing at all. I think what it does is prolong your business or your relationships. I always say if you're the biggest criminal in the world, you want to run a long-run business. And my dad always felt that quality is remembered long after price is forgotten. Those are a few of the things that come to mind real quickly. But, you know, as you know, with your folks, all the years, and you get a lot of things. And those are the ones that come to mind right away. I have a little senior moment, so more may come back later. I had a great experience, a real senior moment at McDonald's the other day. So I go there out in Bonner Springs to McDonald's. And God, I can't find my car keys, and I'm through my briefcase. I always lose everything, but unbelievable. So this guy said, well, maybe you threw them in the trash. Well, I didn't listen. I kept going. So finally I go, fortunately, there wasn't much trash. There they were at the bottom. I was so happy to find them, believe me. So I want to get one of those cars where you put the key in your pocket, you never touch it, because that's got to be the answer. But anyway, so more will come up later, but thanks for asking. But my folks both treated everybody with respect, and there was love, you know, almost for people. So
the University Academy was a big endeavor. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Who's speaking? Oh, there you are. Okay. What about the University Academy?
It was a big endeavor, and it obviously took a major leadership role in starting that. And why did you feel so empowered to do that?
Well, that's an interesting... Let me explain to you. University Academy is a charter public school, which means it gets public funds. It's really its own district, and it's run by its own board, not by the Kansas City, Missouri District Board. Well, why'd we do it? Well, frankly, our company was making great money, and my sons said that, what did Dad want for his 60th birthday? And I said, well, I want to cruise with my family to Alaska. And, well, we take this cruise, and my sons, of course, can we take our girlfriends? And I said no. Kind of surprises me. I'm not that strong a person. So they were really loyal. I was really impressed. Instead of running around the ship, you know, looking for girls, they kept coming to our cabin to talk. Finally, of course, I realized that the average age of the girls on the ship was deceased, so it wasn't such a big deal. But anyway, so we told them, this company's making great money. What do you do with this money? What should we do? And they both said education. And one of them had actually brought a Forbes article about K-12 education, how horrible it was, what people were doing, including the Walton Foundation, and clued us into a lot of ways to get networking on this subject. We actually went down to Bentonville, Arkansas, with our attorney, Peter Brown, and his wife, who'd been an educator. And their big deal was privately funded vouchers to give kids money to go to anywhere they want. And we almost did that. And anyway, I talked to Tom Block about it. Tom Block's mother is actually my first cousin. And I said, Missouri hadn't passed a law. So I said, well, why don't we do it in Kansas? He says, it's a bad charter law. And by the way, it still is. A bad charter law, and this is my simple definition, means that the only people that can authorize a school, you have to have a sponsor, is a school board. So where's that put you? Right back where you start. What's the point? All it does is make the state able to say, well, we have a charter law. Anyway, Missouri passed a pretty darn good law. And so we applied for a charter, and we got our charter. So really my sons are what started it. R is, I don't know which it should be. But anyway, that's how it got started.
I have a question, sir. I'm wondering what your personal strategies are for coping with stress. I'm sure you've had some through the years, and how you cope with stress, maybe how you cope with failure, if that's ever occurred to you. And so I'd just like to know.
Yeah. Mostly, I say I like stress, but there have been points when things were really bad in the business, like every business. And I can remember going home and seeing my face jumping in the mirror. Part of it, I think, my definition of entrepreneurs is they're successful entrepreneurs. They're all a bunch of failures. They're too stupid to give up. And I think that was part of my problem. There were people in the family who wanted to sell the business way back. And I don't know. But I don't know, maybe taking a nap. I'm very good at that. I've actually been diagnosed with a case of incurable laziness, and I don't want a cure. But, I don't know. I'm not one of these, go read or run or this or that. I try to keep in shape. But I don't know. I think I'm really lucky, got a good constitution. But, I did struggle with it. When I looked in the mirror and saw that, I thought, man, you're under stress. I don't know. We're going to talk about it. I think one of the ways you handle it is by knowing and only focusing on what you control and not worrying about anything else. And that takes a lot of stuff away. A lot of stuff. So that really helps, but not a good answer. Yes. Oh,
this is a simple. This is a good simple one. Okay. When you were invited to come to the university to speak, what was your main motivator?
Invited to come to.
When you were invited to come to the university to speak, what was your main motivator?
My main.
What was your motive?
Motive? Mm-hmm. You mean here?
Yeah.
Money. Marty pays me a lot of money. I don't know. Probably. Well. In all of us, probably ego, sharing. I did get to the mentoring thing, you know, we're talking a lot about expansion, which I have no interest in. If somebody comes to us, great. Well, you all came to us. So this is kind of an ongoing relationship. So I hope that's it. I hate ego. I think it prevents progress in every area, including medicine, frankly. You know that. So, but including all of us, business, medicine, diplomacy. So, but you know, we've had an ongoing relationship. And the, you know, $100,000 aurium is nothing to sneeze at. So, you know. Now, there's a lady back here. Yeah.
If you were full-time in business right now, and with what's going on in our country and in the world, how would you motivate and keep your employees and your clients and your friends and family upbeat with how the economy is? How would you do that?
Well, it's not a problem. That company's doing fabulous now. You got a great lady running it, and just the way we always did it. You know, I like the old song, you got to love them in the AM and love them in the PM. And I think you just treat people like people and individually and show them they're appreciated. And I don't think it changes. Again, control. We don't control the economy. But they had the most fantastic increase in February you ever saw. Way more than anybody we know of in the industry. And those people are so upbeat, they can't see straight. I went to Wichita and for another purpose. And naturally, I stopped in the stores there. I've had 2 amazing stores there. And this one store, we can't believe everything that's happened since she came, and they got to walk me through every piece of merchandise, and they're like this. Well, the economy stinks. But you know what? I don't even know, you know, people say, well, there was a recession this year, and I have no idea, no memory. We weren't allowed to do that. I mean, we'd have been thrown out of the house. We said, well, everybody's at the ball game, everybody's Labor Day, and there's a recession, everybody's on strike. Ford and General Motors are both on strike. You know what? Now, I'm sure my memory's bad, but our diamond business was like 60% up then. That doesn't make sense. Any idiot knows the money circulates. We don't know from nothing. We loved our business. It was exciting. Greatest people in the world. They knew we made them important. And I'll tell you, maybe I shouldn't say this in public, but after 32 years of asking them who's number one and them saying the customer, I said, you're wrong. You're number one. Everything comes from those people. If you're happy, it's because they're happy. I went into the Volvo dealership the other day, and they had a sign I really liked. I actually took a picture. And it said, I think the guy's name is Rick Hendricks, and it said, I've never been to a dealership where all the employees were happy and the customers weren't. So I think it all starts with them. And, you know, attitude, somebody said you hire for attitude. And boy, I'll buy that all day long. I mean, let's face it. And, you know, it's not the way, maybe it's not the way to pick a doctor. I always say, you know, I'm not going to marry them. I want the good doctor. But people, they want the bedside manner. And I don't care what area you're doing in. How you treat people is everything, and it makes it fun because they're going to treat you that way. 90%.
I was wondering, we're all in a customer service.
You sure are. You're all KU.
Yes.
In or out of here, you're KU.
That's right. And I was wondering how you instilled in your employees the attributes to offer good customer service, and what did you do with them if they could not provide it?
Well, remember, as my wife says, I'm a dinosaur. 15 years since I've been in business. But I don't think it's complicated. Number one, you got to get the right people, the right attitude, and frankly, you got to divorce, and it's not easy today, but you got to get divorced from people who don't treat them right. Now, I had what I used to do, I would have customers come in, or customer comments, and it came two ways. Like maybe if I got a bad comment from a customer on a store and a negative comment from within the store, I figured where there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm talking on the negative side. But you said, how do you instill it? I don't know. It becomes a culture. You know, it's just the deal to do, and it's the fun. And I mean, my dad always told me, let them take advantage, they'll tell everybody. You know, the philosophy kind of was, I mean, I had a couple of people come to me and say, you know, this is ridiculous. And I said, look, as long as you got me here, we're going to do it. So it's a culture, it's an attitude, it's a pride. It's a pride, you know. I think you all are really elevating yourself, I think, in this community. That's as a real lay person who knows nothing, I just see KU going like this. Why? I don't know. What? I don't know. But I can smell it, I can see it, and I think you're doing it. And you have to know, we used to have everybody say, the meeting, I am Helzberg. I mean, you are KU. When you're home, when you're out in a restaurant. So, you know, how you treat people and react to them. But I think you're really coming. I think you're really going the right direction. And I can't even explain to you why. But I just see, and you know, part of it's in the paper, but you can smell it. And if they'd put me in their basketball team, they would have even come out better. But, you know, that's not my business, so that's okay.
What was it like working with Warren Buffett, and did you sell your business like Nebraska Furniture Mart, Rose Blumkin? They sold it on a handshake. What was it like?
Well, it couldn't have been simpler. Unfortunately, I didn't take his first bid. My brother told me to. But yeah, it was very simple. You know, we went up to see him. Well, let me tell you this story, because you know, most people they'll say, well, we want you to talk to our group, and then they'll come in 2 days later before the meeting, and they'll say, we don't really want to hear about you, we want to hear about Warren Buffett. So anyway, I wrote down, it was time. I knew it was time. I saw my own personal things happening in business. I'm an abdicator, not a delegator. Some things were happening I didn't like. It was just time. And I was getting lazy. I wasn't traveling like I should have. I could see I wasn't doing the job I felt I should have been doing. And so anyway, we interviewed all these, you know, fancy companies, you know, Morgan Stanley, this one. This is before they were all in jail, so we did it. We did in, you know, a building. Anyway, so we go with these people. But I had written down, the one smart thing I did, I put in the contract, if we sell to Berkshire Hathaway, no commission. Well, they said you're going to pay expenses. These people are brutal. So meetings, they bring every 12-year-old in the block. You know, well, you're going to charge for their time. But anyway, do I go to Warren Buffett? No. Should have done that first. So anyway, I'm in New York right after his annual meeting, which is usually the first weekend in May. And if you're interested, I may be able to get you a ticket. It's a real privilege. And, you know, he's about 79, and Charlie Munger is older, so it's not going to go forever. But anyway, I saw him on the street. I heard a lady holler, "Warren Buffett!" I turned around, and wait. Oh, my God. Warren, we were just talking about you, but I'll call you later. I wouldn't go over $2 billion, but I'll call you later. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot to turn that off. Anyway, I said, I walked over and put out my hand. I said, you know, we're interested. We fit your criteria. At that time, they were way lower. And we did. And he said, well, send me the information. It'll be confidential. Well, I didn't. And I went home and I didn't. And then I'm rereading the annual report, which I don't understand the numbers. Let me shut this thing down. Because he'll keep calling. He gets very, you know, these people with all these questions. Too many questions. Anyway, so I'm reading it says it'll be confidential. I'll give you an answer in 5 minutes. We're interested or not. So I'm looking at this idiot in the mirror. I'm shaving the next morning. I said, do you want a song? He told you verbally. He told you in writing. It's going to be confidential. I was always raised that you don't tell anybody the time without getting their social security number. You know, everything's confidential. So anyway, I send it. He says, come up. We go up. One of my mentors, should have taken him, came up with a price that was unbelievable. I mean, it made Bill Gates look like a pauper. And I'm not a negotiator, and I couldn't say this price. So I took our accountant, who had said to me, look, it's Deloitte. He said, we can't negotiate because we do Berkshire, we do Helzberg. He's trying to tell me something, anyway, so we go up. So he says, well, how much you want for the business? I said, well, Frank, tell him, Frank. Well, he just goes on, and he says, well, this could be the fastest deal in history. So I said, well, what about due diligence? You know, that's where they look at every piece of paper you've made in the last 100 years. He says, I can smell these things. This one smells good. So I said, well, you're going to want a non-compete, aren't you? He says, you'll never do anything to hurt this company. You know, not a dummy gets a lifetime deal that way. But anyway, so I messed around, and a few months later, and he sent me a letter. We'll do this. My brother said, do it. Anyway, a few months later, I called, and we did the deal. But he's just, you know, very straightforward and so on. So that's how it was. Just, you know, sign the papers, and that's it. No diligence, no checking your inventory. I mean, I met a guy named second richest private company in the country. He's in Wichita. What's their name? Koch. Charles Koch. And he asked me about it. So he said, if anybody else did business that way, they'd be broke. I mean, it's uncanny. But he's got a jewelry company, Borsheim's, which you know. He knew about our company. He knew a lot, you know. He did his diligence in his own way. But anyway, it was very simple. And if I'd gone up there and done it right away, it would have been simpler. So anyway, that's how it worked.
Would you share a little bit more about the background or origins of the I Am Loved campaign?
Yeah, that's a fun deal. At one time, I was in love 42 years ago, my first wife. Still my wife, by the way. But anyway, but I call her my first wife. She says, I don't like that. Say your current wife. Don't say your first wife. But anyway, I've always loved advertising, so I was home and I always draw ads. So I drew an ad and it just said, give her a button, free at Helzberg's, or a diamond, $50,000 to $5,000, but tell her she's loved. And the first thing I did was throw it in the wastebasket. I thought, you know, that's really embarrassing. And frankly, to this day, I can't wear an I Am Love shirt. I still think it's embarrassing. Anyway, so I pulled it out of the wastebasket. I took it into our office. We had an incredible artist named Claude Burke, who was there probably 37 years. And I showed it to him like, you know, sneaking it. And he said, I like it. And I took it into my brother. My brother says, we got to try this in some markets. It's great. And then I took it to my dad. And my dad, very unusual. And so he says, I don't like it. It'll fill the stores with hippies, 1967. But he said, if you're going to do it right. Well, it was just a magical thing. We had a great copywriter, a young lady. We had this great artist. And it all came together. And it was just a blow-away deal. And we had to go up with a Signboard Hill is where Crown Center is. At that time, it was kind of a rundown area, but they had the sign up there because it was a great spot. And there was a threat and strike of sign painters. How many buttons do you order? You never did this before. I think we ordered 50,000. And they called us and said, can we put the sign up 2 days early because we got this threat and strike? And I said, yeah. So darn near out of buttons by the time the ad breaks on Sunday. We fly a plane over the Chiefs game. You remember the Chiefs? Anybody here? It said, I am loved, and the thing just was bananas. You know, there were stories and schools, and, you know, one school prohibited, and it said, we ran an ad and it said, follow the rules, but after school, I mean, it was bananas, and kids would leave notes on their folks' plates. We did an ad on that, you know, give me one of those buttons. And all over the world, there were sermons and all this stuff. And this one young lady I know told me that her dad could not express that to her, and did it with the button. So that was an amazing experience. I feel like the kid that, you probably know, the Mr. Peanut, some 12-year-old kid came up with Mr. Peanut. I'm a peanut freak, so and I'm kind of like, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird? What's her name? Great author, obviously. Anyway, that's the only book she ever wrote. Well, I'm kind of like, whatever her name is, To Kill a Mockingbird, my only original idea. But anyway, it's been great fun, and we got the federal trademark and all these classifications, and been a lot of fun. And they've really revived it. I mean, frankly, it kind of toned down for years, and I thought, I'm not going to bring it up. That's my ego trip. Shut up. Well, Beryl Raff, who's president of Helzberg, she comes in, she's just going bananas with it. She even made a whole series of jewelry. Now, we did sell some jewelry at the beginning, sold like crazy. But she's made up a really sophisticated line of jewelry, I Am Love jewelry. So it's been amazing.
Hi, thank you for your time today. If you had one or two lessons that you would want your children that you would want to give to your children, what would that be?
If I was going to give advice to my children?
Yeah, one or two words of wisdom for your children.
Oh, God. Oh, I guess I had it in my wife that I put these things in my email. But, you know, to love, to laugh, and to learn. I think that's about it. Including love yourself, love your body, take care of it, and love other people. Learn every day. And laugh. I think that's really important.
Do you have any stories to share about your father when he was 14?
Yeah, this question is, are there stories about my father who took over the business? Well, he wasn't 14, he was 15, so, don't give him too much credit here. Now, what happened is Dad started the business in 1915 and had a stroke 3 years later. Well, one brother was in World War I, and one brother was in dental school. And in those days, they didn't let the girls run the business. One of my aunts would have been fantastic. Aunt Elsie was really neat. But anyway, so he takes over the store, a 15-year-old kid. I wouldn't let him sell jewelry, a 15-year-old kid. Anyway, and just falls in love. The rest of his life, he's in love with the business. And I mean, he went totally against the grain of things done in the business. That's what really amazes me. Everybody thought, get the biggest possible diamond. He goes to certified perfect, the smallest possible diamond. He's not serving rich people. He won't negotiate prices. Everybody else negotiates. He won't do it. He went totally in the other directions and did great. So, anyway, but he really just loved it. He said, you got to be kind of nuts. Every month you get excited all over again. We're going to have a great month. We're going to beat last year. Da-da-da. And, of course, created this culture and pride in the people. So, go figure.
If you could open a retail business today but not sell jewelry, what would you sell at 20%?
I don't know what I'd sell. I've got this crazy idea that keeps coming back. I know what I'd name it, but I don't know what I'd sell. You want the name? And this is really bugging me. The name of it is High Prices, Low Quality. And I defy you not to come in that store. Because people are so sick of hearing we got the lowest prices, we got the best quality. But then you give them good quality. But the name of it is High Prices, Low Quality. Would you go to that store? I don't know what to sell. Now, what I might sell, and this wouldn't go at all, because I really believe you got to have a focus. Helzberg diamonds, not Helzberg jewelers, Helzberg diamonds. I always think, they put up Joe's. What's Joe's? But what I'd like to do, and I'm too lazy, obviously, but it's just whatever I like my favorite things, every gimmick, and that's what you sell. But you end up with a whole hodgepodge of nothing. That's my idea. So you want to do it? You're welcome. It's really funny you ask that question, because I keep thinking about this idea. High prices, low quality. What a name.
Now that Berkshire Hathaway owns the business, are you pleased with the way it is still running? Are you happy with what they've done? We lived in Omaha, so we saw Borsheim's, and we also saw NFM, and they still followed very much the family traditions. Are you seeing that also, and are you pleased?
Yeah, I'm especially pleased since April 10th of last year of this lady who's taken it over that Mr. Buffett brought in to run it. And I've been pleased and sometimes not so pleased, but yeah, very much so, yeah.
I can imagine having that in your family and that being so much a part of your lives. It's almost like turning over a child.
Yeah, well, once in a while you want to turn over a child. Not permanently, but you know what I mean. No, I don't know. Now, I'll tell you, my wife's never forgiven me for selling. But I feel good about it. And, today, it was business was much easier in those days, I think. So anyway, who's next? I'm
Um,
sorry, but they pick him. I'm the good cop. He's a bad cop.
I have a son who's going to graduate from college soon, and he has a dream of becoming an entrepreneur. So can you talk a little bit about the mentoring program
Oh, I'd love
that
to.
you founded?
Well, first, the name of the mentoring program is the best part. It's HEMP, hemp. And of course, we've had a lot of fun with that. Helzberg. I wanted to name it after Mr. Kaufman, but I was vetoed. But anyway, I think my example was probably my dad, because he had a brilliant lawyer and this great real estate man, and we're going to have lunch with Max or with Tim Mag, and my dad was a great listener. I realized after. But anyway, Mr. Kaufman would mentor me, and I'd thank him, and he'd say, well, that's okay, you'll help somebody someday. And so I had this idea for a few years, and almost everybody I asked patted me on the head and said, great, great, great. And one person who's one of the smartest people in this town, Morton Soslin, he said, you can't do this. It's too much personal, it's chemistry and all that. A year or two later, he called me. He said, I want to hear about it. I think it's great you're doing it. And to me, I love beginners because they test you. I mean, if you don't believe in it that much, fine, don't do it. I always think an entrepreneur is somebody that an idea grabs you in the throat and you really don't have a choice. So anyway, we got a few people, and I got some names. I got Henry Block, and we put all the names on the stationery. Had no idea what we were doing, and it developed, I thought, pretty well. And, we kept learning stuff from other people. One of them is you go out, and we still, believe me, we have a long way to go. We're kind of in a critical learning thing right now about attendance. But anyway, we used to have them come in and interview them. Now we go out. We get financial information. Now we even get a tax return. Anyway, frankly, what happened, it was kind of the good to great story, I hope. I think it's much, much better. I went to a friend of mine named Ray Pittman, who I'd known for a lot of years, and asked him to be a mentor. And he's one of these guys that, he invented the cherry picker, the thing. Anyway, but he's had a lot of businesses. And anyway, he came in and just kind of turned the thing upside down, upset some people. Told me we're really going to wreck it. And frankly, I thought, well, if he wrecks it, we'll just rebuild it. And if he doesn't, he'll make it. Well, he did make it. It's way better than it's been. So, it's just phased up the last few years much better. And, my luck is, people say, well, you ran a big company. Well, I never ran anything in my life, but I usually got around some great people, and they were smart and they did it. And I thought my job's keeping the culture and going out in the stores and having fun with the people. And frankly, there was a man named Barney Carbank. I don't know, maybe you've seen their signs of that company. They're around town. He was a great real estate man, and he accused me of this thing being a cult, not an organization, because the relationships and all that. So the networking is a major part of it, not just the mentor. And that, apparently we're doing a pretty good job. I always thought that's going to be the Achilles heel. How can you have a mail order bride? How do you match people? And I think it's pretty darn good process now. But we have feedback and switch it around if it's not working. So I don't know if that's just what you want to know, but that's somewhat the evolution and what we're doing. A lot of networking time, that's key, because they make a lot of contacts. So it's kind of like we're all kind of stones in a river, or, you know, what are the ripples from you, from your kids? You go out. So you have a tremendous effect. I even have a Wall Street article from years ago, and it tells how the atmosphere at work affects the family life of the people that work for you. So it affects their kids. It affects a lot of people. And you all are affecting a lot of people, you know. Even when you go in a restaurant, you get real good service. You tell the person, you know, changes their day and you know, there's a lot of things people are struggling with, always, and you don't know. My son gave a generous tip at Winstead's a few months ago. I was with him, and this waitress went into tears, and she said, you know what you've done? I'm helping my mother, and she's sick and all this. I mean, it's not just giving the tip, but just being nice to people, or, you know, kind of being outgoing. And not everybody wants that. I know that. My wife tries to discipline me at times. But anyway, it's just important.
When I think of jewelry, I tend to think it's geared toward the female sex.
Right.
My question is, what was your first and most outstanding product for men's line? What did you get them to be interested in? And what was the biggest seller? And then on the flip side, as far as like sex and minority, do you hire a lot of minorities within your company? What's your percentage?
I don't know. I don't know that. I just don't know. I think so, but I don't know. It was interesting because talking about minorities, I remember when we first started to have female managers. That was a big deal. It's probably, I don't know, I got a feeling it might be more than half today. I'll never forget this cute Marcia at North, in a Metro North store. She'd tell me, she'd say, you know, it was all women except one man. She says, you know, my men, they're always getting sick. They're this, they're that. They're a real problem. But I don't know today the minorities or any of that.
What did you sell to get men interested in your line of jewelry? What was your big seller?
Well, you know, women inspire the jewelry sales. It was really interesting. Men's, especially when I first came in, I mean, they almost avoided it. De Beers avoided it, you know, because of the Diamond Jim Brady, and who knows. I think it's kind of accepted. I don't know that it's men's is any big deal today. You know, if you look at the world of retail, it's all women's. I mean, the women's clothes, the women's this, the women's that. The men, who needs them? I mean, I used to hear to get a men's story in a mall, it was really hard because, you know, I got suits 20, 30 years old. I mean, there's no difference. So men they're lousy customers. You know, they don't understand. You know, so the ties go this way and this way. Well, the men probably have the old ties in their closet. You know, they don't. So they're kind of hopeless. You know, this country wouldn't be very good if it had just men consumers. And let me tell you, if men had babies, there wouldn't be any babies. You know that. They couldn't handle it. So women are, thank God for women. I mean, some days, you know, some days. But really, you know, the women, look at retail. It's all the women's stuff. The men's business is a tough one.
First, thank you and your wife for University Academy and everything else you've done for Kansas City.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe in line of what you said, you thought business was changing and maybe harder. It seems to me one of the ways business is changing is different marketing. You know, they talk about social marketing, about all the electronic marketing. From hearing you talk about your concept of what you'd call a store and also your success with I Am Loved, you probably have something else you might. What do you think about the way marketing is changing in our new?
Well, I think it's really exciting. I'm starting to see, my wife has Webster House, and I see a little there. My wife and I could never be in business together, so we don't talk too much about it. But it's pretty fascinating because it's kind of one-to-one marketing, you know. It's really amazing. And I did love mail order. I single-handedly kind of wrecked our mail order business, so I thought it was really, but you know, the slicing and the dicing and the best customer group and the this and the that. And I mean, to me, it's really fascinating. But you know, it's just like medical is so much harder today with all the HIPAA and the forms and the insurance. Well, business isn't that tough as I think medical is, but I mean, my cousin, I mean, you have to bill people you know aren't even going to pay, and pay that money, and the money that goes into waste. So you're in a tough business. And I think just, you know, generally business is tougher today with the forms and the this and the that. But the social marketing, I think, is really exciting. We had a hemp meeting on that with 6 people that were kind of expert in it. God, we had a sellout. We had to turn people away. So I think it's an incredibly exciting, changing thing. I think it's great. So I you know, that's really something really new that is working and not working. You know, depends who's figured it out, right? I think it's really exciting.
Okay, my question, I'm right here. Who is your biggest competitor in the jewelry field? Has that changed a lot throughout the years? And what have you learned, good and bad, from that business or businesses?
Well, it's kind of interesting because our success partly came from somebody who we thought was a competitor. And I have to say, it's kind of an interesting story, and history's almost repeating itself, frankly. But Zale Corporation was big in those days. And they had Bailey Banks and Biddle stores, and they had Zale stores. And I think they've sold the Bailey Banks, and the whole world's changed. And frankly, what happened simultaneously was that Zale went bankrupt, and they closed stores. And they always had 3 times our inventory. And all of a sudden, they cut their inventory. And we had people, new management come in, and our inventories got way bigger. If I had been managing these big inventories, we'd have been bankrupt. That takes a lot of skill, but we had people to do it. And then our margins, we cut like 1% a year for about 6 years. And they probably had lower margins way back. So then they actually went bankrupt. Now what's happening today is really almost scary. And I told Beryl, I said, history's repeating itself. They're about to go bankrupt again. Their figures are public, and they keep going like this. And history's almost repeating, and she's got this Helzberg's on fire. So it's history's repeating. So it's really bizarre. Now, there's other good competitors. There's a company called Signet that owns K's, and I really don't know what K's figures are. And they have Jared's, and they've had, well, I shouldn't say that. We do know overall in December, I think they were 7 or 8% ahead, and we were maybe a little more. But in February, I still say we, And this lady, I got to tell you the story. It's really interesting because she calls me, and I kind of tried to stay away. I thought, it was better when he was here. We wouldn't have changed. Well, we would have changed. You're always changing. But, I thought I'm better to stay away. And they invited me to one thing over the years, and I didn't blame them. This lady calls me. She says, I want you to have a relationship with the company. And you know what's going to happen, your name and all that, so they're going to make a big deal over you, and it takes away from their ego or whatever. I said, you don't need a mother-in-law. You don't want this. That's not a good idea. No, she says, I really want you to become part of the company again. So she invites us to meetings. We're going to go to California where they honor their top salespeople and all that. So she's restored a lot of the stuff that maybe it wasn't there. I don't know. But she's got it on fire. So history is repeating. It just, it's so fascinating to me because I remember I'm buying diamond rings. I'm buying rings, mountings, and that we put the diamonds. And I buy 10 rings, and the guy says, well, Morris Zale just bought 100. You're just a pipsqueak. Well, so I don't know. It's like you sit in one place and the world goes by and all this thing changes. I mean, frankly, who thought General Motors would go bankrupt? And by the way, they're doing a good job now. This new Buick's fabulous, the LaCrosse and all that. But who thought these companies would go? So I don't know. You just sit around and the world changes. And anyway, that's how it is.
Yeah, Mr. Helzberg, I hope I don't embarrass you, but this really hasn't been brought up. You have been involved in so many philanthropic efforts in Kansas City through the years. It's hard to think of a charity that you've not been affiliated with.
My
and,
wife, not
yeah,
me.
well, you're
Not
there
me.
too, and it's
Not
really
me.
an honor for you to talk to us today. But what I was curious about, how do you decide what charities to throw your energies behind? Because there have
Well,
been
I
so
really
many.
don't. I'm really not involved in much. No, really, I have a terminal case of laziness. But, and I'll tell you, I don't do boards. Barney Carbank kind of freed me. I think as a kid, it's an ego thing. And but now I'm on 2 boards, the school and the mentoring. And if somebody wants me aboard, I tell them the truth. Number 1, I can't hear. There's advantages to that. And number 2, I talk too much. Number 3, I'm a loose cannon. Number 4, I don't prepare. And number 5, I can't sit. It's all true. Debbie will tell you. Where's Debbie? Is Debbie here? She didn't escape. Oh, good. And I told her, I want Monday and Friday off. And if you were an exception, but if she set something up, our office is on the 10th floor, and she's in great danger going out the window. So she understands that. So, no, I'm not involved. My wife, she's on umpteen boards, and I wouldn't even know where I am, what meeting I'm at. So I can't stand meetings. That's why I didn't want to just give a speech. I don't think you learn. And we're talking about, I hope, what you want to talk about, not what I want to talk about. So.
Healthcare. Tell us, what do we need to know from your standpoint as a consumer?
I was going to ask you. Healthcare. I don't know. I've been reading too much. My wife gets the New York Times. I get the Wall Street, of course, the Star. That book might give it to you. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do we do? There's so much waste. Just do away with the waste, with the fear, with the defensive medicine, because I might get sued. So is tort, the lawyers, frankly, will tell you tort reform, it's only 3%. Well, it's not 3%. It's all the defensive medicine. So I don't know. I'm not that smart, believe me. Thank God I'm not in that racket. Oh, you're in a tough business.
I'd like to thank Barnett.
Dr.
for coming
Klein can
today.
answer that.
No, not very well. I'd like to thank you for your time, for coming.
Thank you.
And,
This has really been fun.
And your willingness to answer questions.
Huh?
Your willingness to answer questions
Oh,
and
I
not
love
have a
it.
formal presentation.
It's a lot easier.
And we have a little gift for you.
Oh, thanks. You know, I got to tell you, the last gift you gave me
Uh-oh.
was a case that keeps stuff cold. And I use that so much, I can't believe it. So thank you.
I think it has something inside, too.
Great. It's healthcare reform inside. Oh, another shirt. Pretty, pretty. I like that one. Thank you. Thank you. Boy, that was easy.
Thanks a lot.
That was easy.
That was my speech.
So, that was so amazing. We never had to do a speech.